The American Cancer Society says that every day, 1,600 people lose their lives to cancer. Radiation, chemotherapy, and various clinical trials have proven to control cancer growth, and that too in very rare cases. But what if there's a better and less risky way to control cancer growth? In the 1920s, Otto Warburg made a groundbreaking discovery of a new way to kill cancer cells. He found out that cancer cells stay alive and grow because of glucose, the primary source of energy for the human body. If that is taken away, the cancer cells can't stay alive anymore. At first, this seemed impossible. Taking away glucose could be fatal. But what if the human body could generate energy from something other than glucose? Today, we're going to explain how new research shows that the keto diet can help control cancer growth. So, what is a keto diet? A simplified definition of a ketogenic diet is that it involves replacing carbohydrates with fat and protein in daily food consumption. For example, a standard ketogenic diet typically contains 70% fat, 20% proteins, and only 10% carbohydrates. This diet not only helps you lose fat quickly, but also has several other benefits, such as controlling or slowing down tumor growth. When you start a keto diet, your body goes into a metabolic state called ketosis. Your body starts to use fat for energy instead of carbs, and consequently, you lose fat. But what does a diet have to do with cancer? How does it control it? And the biggest question of all, does the keto diet cure cancer? In 1922, Bronstein noted that the urine of diabetic patients has no glucose after they were diagnosed with cancer. This suggests that the cancer tumor was using glucose at a higher rate, and therefore was not being excreted. Soon afterwards, Otto Warburg's research found that cancer cells live off glycolysis. They produce high lactate levels, and this can happen even in the presence of oxygen. This meant that if the body could produce an alternative source of energy, the cancer cells would cease to thrive. What glucose does is that it stimulates the pancreatic beta cells to release insulin. The glucose then enters the cells and provides energy. With a high-carbon glucose diet, the pancreas secrete more insulin, promoting the interaction of growth hormone receptors. This also increases the growth hormone's ability to produce the insulin-like growth factor in the liver. As a result, cell growth is improved as well as proliferation, which can be detrimental to patients with cancer. In addition, the overexpression of glucose transporters 1 and 3 occurs in most cancers, which corresponds to the amount of glucose uptake in aggressive tumors. All of this is seen through the PET scan. Another major issue is the overexpression of hexokinase. This rate-limiting enzyme of glycolysis drives the production of pyruvate and lactate, causing significant damage to reactive oxygen species. Warburg's research also shows that the relocation of the hexokinase rate-limiting enzyme from the cystosol, the aqueous component in the cell's cytoplasm, into the outer mitochondrial membrane also disrupts the release of cytochrome. This blocks the apoptotic pathways of cancer cells and makes them more resistant to chemotherapy. In simple words, glucose is the power food of cancer tumors, and according to current research, doctors believe that a better solution is to simply starve cancer cells. The human body can easily replace glucose as its primary source of energy. Normal cells can efficiently function with energy from fatty acids and ketones, but cancer cells can't. So when glucose content is reduced in the human body, our organs automatically sense the need to make energy from something else. The liver automatically starts to produce ketones and fatty acids in the scarcity of glucose, and this is what's called being in ketosis. But why can't cancer cells use fatty acids and ketones as food? The other cells do, so why not cancer cells? You see, mitochondria produce adenose triphosphate, or ATP, in the cells. The ATP is consumed for energy in different processes, such as muscle contraction, chemical synthesis, ion transport, and substrate phosphorylation. Normal and healthy cells can produce ATP easily because their mitochondria is in good health. However, the mitochondria of cancer cells are dysfunctional. Their electron transport chain is also defective, and because of this, they cannot produce ATP normally. Therefore, cancer cells become dependent on ATP produced from glycolysis. When following a keto diet, the human body is in a fasting state. Its glucose levels are low, and it starts to produce ketones as an energy substitute. Lactate production also increases, and this compensates for the low amounts of ATP caused by the dysfunctional mitochondria. This means that the tumor's dependence on glucose is exploited because the body isn't producing enough of it. The tumor eventually begins to starve, and the body continues to get its necessary energy from fat and protein. The ratio of high fat to low carb consumption in a keto diet makes the body believe it's starving. Research on mice also suggests that a keto diet can slow cancer growth. This happens because the diet reduces insulin levels, which are important for cancer cells to grow and spread. It also boosts a molecule called AMP, which helps block how cancer cells use energy, making it harder for them to grow and spread. In a test on a mouse, it was observed that exogenous ketones have a direct cytotoxic effect on metastatic cancer tumors. Beta-hydroxybutyrate modifies chromatin and inhibits histone deacetylase, effectively stopping the proliferation of cancer cells. The interesting thing is that this isn't just tested on rats. The New York Department of Mental Hygiene published a paper in 1962 detailing the results of hypoglycemia-induced insulin comas in 2 women. Both patients were not fit to undergo the electric shock therapy, and when the psychotherapy route was taken, the results were incredible. The depressive and psychotic symptoms started to reverse, and their cancer cells, which were visible, cervical cancer, and metastatic melanoma, also started to respond. Within just 2 months, the tumor had starved and shrunk to the point where it became undetectable. In another case, the patient had a glioblastoma that was effectively treated with temozolomide oral chemotherapy. They were taken off of steroids completely, and as a result, the tumor remained in control for over a year. However, when they stopped following the diet, the tumor started to react again, and the patient ultimately transitioned to chemotherapy. The disease then progressed, and the patient lost the battle to cancer. Lastly, 2 female patients showed us that after 8 weeks of ketogenic dieting, their mood improved, and the glucose uptake on their tumor sites decreased significantly. One of the patients continued the diet and remained disease-free for another year. These cases, although quite old, are evidence that glucose metabolism could be exploited to treat or at least control cancer growth. More recent research shows that patients with head and neck cancers who followed ketogenic diets showed lower lactic acid levels in their tumor tissues after just 4 days. Here a question arises. If keto makes the tumor shrink, would bombarding the body with cytotoxic chemotherapy make the process faster? According to Dr. Thomas Seyfried, when a cancer patient is in a state of ketosis, the tumor is already shrinking because it's starving. When chemotherapy is added to the mix, the cancer cells are killed faster. Many doctors in Istanbul, Turkey, are already doing this, and there have been cases of spectacular recoveries. However, chemotherapy drugs are extremely toxic. They have adverse side effects including pain, nausea, hair fall, body weakness, and much more. The human body slowly deteriorates because of chemo. Because of that, Dr. Seyfried believes that adding toxic materials to the body of a cancer patient, no matter how small the quantity, is unnecessary. The tumor is already being killed without any drugs, so why make the process more complex? Despite that, the use of drugs such as cisplatin, carboplatin, or the arguably less toxic of them all, glutamine inhibition 6-diazo-5-oxo-L norlysine, could be necessary. It entirely depends on the severity of the cancer. But what's important to keep in mind is that the patient needs to be in the perfect ketosis state before these drugs can be administered to slaughter the tumor. Otherwise, the drugs could have the opposite effect and make the situation more dire than ever. Keeping in mind the research and the trials, Dr. Seyfried believes that if a person is constantly in a state of ketosis, the chances of cancerous cell spawning is considerably low. This is backed by historical records of chimpanzees, the closest relatives of human beings in terms of genes and protein sequence. Chimpanzees, Aboriginal tribes from Africa, and even the Inuits from Alaska and Canadian regions have been examined for years by medical professionals. They have never had cancer, and it's believed that it is because they are in a constant state of ketosis. Their diets are very low in carbs, and therefore their bodies use fat as their primary source of energy. Albert Schweitzer, a German-French theologian and physician, also examined 40,000 African people and noted that none of them had any sign of cancer. It was later concluded that this is because their diet contains natural food, low carbs, and high doses of fat and protein. The issue comes with modern Western diets because they are highly processed, carbohydrate-rich foods. They put the body in a state of inflammation, and the inflammation damages respiration and cells and leads to cancer. Moreover, the processed food epidemic has also led to increased cases of obesity, which is on the verge of becoming the #1 reason for cancer. According to the National Cancer Institute, cancer is still considered a genetic disease. However, Dr. Seyfried believes that it is purely a metabolic disease. Consumption of processed foods leading to obesity, smoking cigarettes, and drinking alcohol are still top causes of cancer. He also says that human beings have evolved to resist cancer completely, making it extremely hard to get cancer. However, constant and long-term abuse of the body and the metabolic system leads to mitochondria dysfunction and chronic damage to oxidative phosphorylation, which then leads to cancer. All in all, oncologists like Dr. Seyfried and several others believe that cancer growth can be controlled by following a healthy diet. However, it is important to note that the research on the relationship between keto and cancer is still ongoing. Nothing conclusive has been said about keto being a cure for cancer. Do you think a keto diet can have such a powerful impact against cancer? Let me know what you guys think. I hope you liked this video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more healthy updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.